Welcome to the Greatest Philosophers in History series, where we explore the most profound ideas ever developed about life, meaning, and human existence. In this episode, we dive into the philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche, one of the most radical and influential thinkers in Western intellectual history. Friedrich Nietzsche was a 19th-century German philosopher whose work shook the foundations of morality, religion, psychology, and culture. He was a relentless critic of traditional European values, especially Christianity, which he believed denied life rather than affirmed it. Nietzsche did not seek comfort, consensus, or popularity. He sought truth, no matter how unsettling. Nietzsche's life and tragic collapse. Nietzsche's life was marked by isolation, illness, and misunderstanding. From early adulthood until the abrupt end of his productive years, he was largely excluded from the intellectual circles of his time and suffered from severe physical and mental health problems. In 1889, Nietzsche experienced a complete mental collapse. While walking through the streets of Turin, he witnessed a horse being brutally whipped by its owner. Overcome with emotion, Nietzsche ran to the horse, wrapped his arms around its neck, and collapsed. He never recovered from this breakdown and spent the final 11 years of his life in silence and mental darkness. Initially diagnosed with syphilis, modern scholars have challenged this claim. Alternative explanations include manic depressive illness with psychosis or a slow-growing brain tumor. Nietzsche died in 1900. During his lifetime, Nietzsche's work sold very poorly, sometimes only a handful of copies per year. Ironically, it was only after his death that his ideas gained widespread recognition and influence. Misrepresentation and the Nazi distortion. After Nietzsche's collapse, his sister Elizabeth Forster Nietzsche took control of his unpublished manuscripts. She heavily edited and distorted his writings to align with her own nationalist and anti-Semitic views, which later became associated with Nazism. This led to one of the greatest misrepresentations in intellectual history. Nietzsche despised anti-Semitism and openly criticized it. He admired Jewish culture and intellect and saw it as a vital contribution to European civilization. The association of Nietzsche with Nazism is not only false, it is a tragic corruption of his ideas. Dionysus versus the Crucified. In the brief period following his breakdown, Nietzsche wrote a series of letters known as the Madness Letters, signing them alternately as Dionysus or the Crucified. Dionysus, the Greek god of wine, fertility, and ecstasy, represents a total affirmation of life, a joyful, creative yes to existence. The Crucified refers to Jesus, whom Nietzsche called the one and only true Christian, suggesting that authentic Christianity died on the cross. This was not an attack on Jesus himself, but on Christianity as an institution. A system Nietzsche believed rejected life by promoting suffering as virtue and escape into an imaginary afterlife. Amor Fati. Loving fate, Nietzsche believed that much of human misery comes from dividing life into yes and no, good versus bad, acceptable versus unacceptable. When happiness depends on circumstances we cannot control, we surrender our power. His solution was Amor Fati, the love of fate, to love everything that happens, to say yes to life in its entirety, joy, suffering, failure, and loss, to become a yes-sayer. Thus spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche's core vision. Nietzsche's most important work, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, laid the foundation for everything he would later write. He considered it his greatest achievement. It was followed by Beyond Good and Evil, another cornerstone of his philosophy. Nietzsche did not write for the masses. He wrote for an intellectual minority, for those strong enough to question their deepest beliefs. He was also one of the earliest thinkers to merge philosophy and psychology. He believed psychology was the queen of sciences, underlying our beliefs, values, and decisions. His philosophical critiques are deeply psychological, exposing hidden motivations beneath morality and religion, self-overcoming and the role of suffering. At the heart of Nietzsche's philosophy is self-overcoming, Selbstüberwindung. Life inevitably involves suffering, it cannot be eliminated. Growth only comes through confronting pain, not avoiding it. Modern life, Nietzsche argued, is obsessed with comfort, ease, and superficial happiness. But is this true freedom? Or is it a falsified version of reality? To affirm life fully, we must face it honestly, including everything dark, cruel, and terrifying within humanity. Even pain, struggle, and difficulty serve the enhancement of life. Pain is unavoidable. From birth to death, suffering is guaranteed. Yet most people spend their lives running from it, seeking comfort instead of strength. Nietzsche urges us to face hardship, because it is the only path to transformation. Like climbing a mountain, the struggle is brutal, but only from the summit can one see life's most beautiful views. And only those brave enough to climb will ever see them. Perspectivism. Truth has no final form. Nietzsche's doctrine of perspectivism holds that all knowledge depends on perspective. There is no absolute or objective truth, only interpretations. Philosophy does not deliver final answers. It opens new ways of seeing. Nietzsche envisioned a new kind of philosopher, free spirits. They do not impose their truth on others. They stand alone, they will face rejection, closed doors, and hostility, but they are free. Human nobility and the pathos of distance. For Nietzsche, human nobility is not about possessing knowledge but living it. It is measured by how much truth one can endure. Noble individuals maintain distance, from the crowd, from mediocrity, from comfort. This is the pathos of distance, the chasm separating the great from the ordinary. Nietzsche was not concerned with uplifting everyone. He accepted that most people would remain part of the herd. His goal was to elevate those capable of elevation, even if the herd despised him for it. Creating values in a world without God, Nietzsche's central question was, how are we to live, or more precisely, how are we to endure life? He saw life as chaotic, without inherent purpose. There are no objective values out there. Yet humans cannot live without values, therefore, values must be created, not discovered. The strongest individuals are value creators. Their morality glorifies strength, self-trust, pride, and independence. With the death of God, traditional values collapse. Humanity must create new ones, or fall into nihilism. Master morality versus slave morality. Nietzsche distinguished between master morality and slave morality. Slave morality resents strength and power, calling them evil. It values obedience, humility, and submission. Christianity, Nietzsche argued, arose from this morality, a hatred of life disguised as virtue. Master morality does not seek domination but creation. It values strength, courage, and self-expression. When obedience becomes absolute, independence is labeled dangerous, and excellence becomes evil. Zarathustra's three transformations. Nietzsche presents three stages of self-overcoming: the camel, burdened by thou shalt, carrying tradition and obligation; the lion, who says no and destroys old values; the child, who says yes, creates new values, and affirms life joyfully. True freedom belongs to the child, playful, creative, curious, and unburdened. Will to power, eternal recurrence, and the Overman. Nietzsche believed the will to power is the fundamental force of life, not survival, not knowledge, but becoming what one truly is. Every action expresses this will. The eternal recurrence asks, would you live this exact life again, endlessly? Only the strongest spirit would joyfully answer yes. This leads to Nietzsche's highest ideal, the Overman, Übermensch. Not a ruler of others, but a master of self, the opposite of the last man, comfortable, mediocre, and empty. The Overman is the meaning of existence, the pinnacle of self-overcoming. Final thought, for Nietzsche, meaning is not discovered, it is created, to live dangerously, to love fate, to overcome oneself, to say yes to life, again and again. That is Nietzsche's challenge to humanity.